Hello students, welcome to today's class. Today we are going to talk about various theories of intelligence. The main objectives in this lesson today are to understand these different types of theories of intelligence. Today we are going to speak about Spearman's two-factor theory, Thurston's theory of primary mental abilities, Thorndike's multi-factor theory. When anybody calls you as an intelligent person, we feel very nice. To be labelled as being intelligent imparts positive feelings. It encourages self-esteem and sense of worth. But what is intelligence? A typical dictionary definition of intelligence is the capacity to acquire and apply your knowledge. Intelligent includes the ability to benefit from the past experiences, act purposefully, solve problems and adapt to new situations. Intelligence is a complex thing to define. It is not very easy to define this concept. The study of intelligence has proved to be a continuously evolving and a dynamic field, because of which the field is expanding rapidly over the years. Many theorists have argued that our view of human intelligence is far too narrow. It leads to the way to an expanded view of what intelligence is and what constitutes the topic of intelligence. The theories of intelligence have always proven to be useful in understanding the concept and nature of intelligence. There are different theories about intelligence, none of which agree with each other. Every theory, every approach to thinking comes up with its own different perspective and assumptions, often contradicting at least one earlier theory. In this lesson today, we are going to study about some of these theories of intelligence. First, we will talk about Spearman's theory of intelligence. Charles Spearman was a psychologist from England. He formulated a intelligence theory which is known as two-factor theory in the year 1904. He has analyzed the concept of intelligence both scientifically and also systematically. According to his theory, the intelligence of an individual consists of two factors: general mental ability factor, which is known as G factor, and specific factor, which is known as S factor. Further, Spearman elaborated that all intellectual activities share a single common factor that runs through all the activities a person performs during his life. Spearman called this as a general factor or mental energy, which is determined innately, meaning you are born with it. It is a mental operation that is primary and common to all performance. A person cannot be trained to have higher G factor. It is part of who they are, something you are born with. People possess general intelligence or G in varying degrees. On the basis of this general intelligence, we describe a person as either intelligent or dull. This G is the major determinant of one's score in any intelligence test. For example, the intelligence you require to do the daily activities, like simple things like brushing your teeth or talking to somebody, etc., needs to have general intelligence, which is determined by G factor. Now, in addition to G factor, Spearman also formulated specific factors, which are specific to a particular ability. For example, singers, dancers or scientists may have high G factor, meaning they generally have high general intelligence. But in addition to this, they have specific ability factors which make them outstanding in their respective fields. Therefore, an individual's intelligence score reflects the amount of G and the magnitude of various S factors possessed by the individuals. For example, a person's mechanical ability would be both general intelligence, that is G, and his knowledge and understanding of mechanics, which is the S factor. Now, let us sum up the features of general factor and specific factor. In this table, you can see how G factor and S factor are differentiated. G factor is an innate ability. whereas S factor can be learned and acquired. G factor is influenced by many factors such as age, sex, gender, etc. The amount of G factor is constant for all the activities an individual performs, whereas S factor varies from task to task in the same individual. The amount of G factor also varies from person to person. S factor varies from person to person with regard to only a particular specific ability. The G factor, an individual can be described as bright or dull. I mean, with help of G factor, you can describe an individual as bright or dull. Whereas with S factor, the amount of S factor in addition to G factor indicates the skill of an individual about that specific ability. Spearman theory is also popular for introducing factor analysis in psychology. This is known as one of the major contributions to the history of psychology. Spearman used the techniques of factor analysis to find the G and S factors. Factor analysis involves finding out the correlation of related variables and then grouping the variables to form clusters and deriving the underlying factors. When you take large number of variables, factor analysis helps you to reduce it to the lesser number of factors, which makes us easier to understand the traits of an individual. Many modern intelligence tests modified Spearman's G factor into an objective score, which is commonly known as the IQ score, meaning intelligent quotient. It is believed that IQ scores of an intelligence test reflect G factor and is considered as a good measure of a person's general intelligence. So, if you are taking any kind of IQ test, it is basically measuring your G factor unless it is related to any kind of specific ability. Spearman paved a way for the development of different theoretical perspectives on intelligence, but it also had some challenges. Spearman has often been criticized for his factor analysis approach to intelligence, which was purely psychometric and ignored the cognitive basis of intelligence. Next, we will try to understand another theory of intelligence, which is known as Thurston's theory of primary mental abilities. Louis Thurston objected to Spearman's emphasis on general intelligence. He states that intelligent activities are not an expression of innumerably highly specific factors or just an expression primarily of a particular general factor that influences all mental activities. Thurston suggested that intelligence can be divided into number of primary abilities by using factor analysis. Though he criticized Spearman in many other aspects, he adopted the factor analysis technique. Thus, Thurston proposed a different theory of intelligence. Instead of viewing intelligence as a single general ability, Thurston's theory focused on 7 different primary mental abilities. He recognized the diversity of human abilities. Thurston used improved statistical techniques and developed a new factor model of intelligence. Based on intercorrelation of scores of different tests on a large group of subjects, he identified 7 factors which are called as primary mental abilities. Let us now discuss what are these primary mental abilities. First one is verbal comprehension. Now, verbal comprehension indicates how good you are at speaking, writing, all that which is related to language. It basically involves a person's ability to understand verbal material. When you want to measure verbal comprehension, you can measure by tests such as vocabulary and reading comprehension. So, all those reading comprehensions which you had it in school actually were to understand how good you are at verbal comprehension. The next aspect here is word fluency. Now, here you might have find some people who are very good when they are talking, the way they use their language, the way they use their sentences, the frame their sentences, they are very good at it. That means they are good at word fluency. This is an ability which is involved in rapidly producing words, sentences and other verbal material. It is measured by tests such as one that requires the subject to produce as many words as possible beginning with a particular letter in a short amount of time. For example, I might give you a letter T and ask you to make so many words, as many words as possible you can make with letter T in a given amount of time. So, this will be measure of word fluency. The next factor which is very important in our daily life is numerical ability. Some people are very good with numbers, they quickly understand numbers, that means they have good numerical ability. The ability is involved in rapid arithmetic computation and in solving simple arithmetic word problems is related to numerical ability. Then next we talk about perceptual speed. This ability is involved in proofreading and in rapid recognition of letters and numbers. It is measured by tests such as those requiring the crossing out of as in a long string of letters, or in tests requiring recognition of which of several pictures at the right is identical to the picture at the left. You get it in magazine as children, how different the two pictures are. Try to find out 6 differences between 2 identical pictures. That is nothing but it is measuring or assessing your perceptual speed. The next factor is inductive reasoning. The ability requires generalization, reasoning from the specific to general. It is measured by tests such as letter series, number series and word classifications, in which the examinee must indicate which of the several words does not belong to others. There are specific things from which you generalize the topic, that is nothing but inductive reasoning. Then you have spatial ability. Spatial ability is very much required when you are driving. The judgment of space basically is spatial ability. This ability is involved in visualizing shapes, rotation of objects, how pieces of puzzles fit together. If you are able to do puzzles very well, that means you have good spatial ability. An example of a test would be presentation of a geometric form. They will give you a geometric figure which is followed by another geometric figure. Each of this figure is rotated in a different way. Okay. So, each of the forms that follow the first is either the same rotated by some rigid transformation, or it is a mirror image of the first form in rotation. Now, what you have to do is you have to indicate which of the form at the right is rotated version of the form at the left rather than the mirror image. So, you need to have an understanding of angles, how it is rotated, etc. This indicates your spatial ability. Now, the final one in the 7 mental ability is memory. As you all know, the ability to memorize and recall is also an important part of intelligence. It is ability to memorize events or the capacity to remember words, numbers, letters or any other symbols. It is measured by the tests such as recalling lists of words, mathematical formulas, dates, definitions, etc. Therefore, according to Thurston's theory, whenever an individual does a task, he or she invests all the primary mental abilities, but in a different proportions, as primary abilities are more beneficial in certain tasks than the other. For example, an engineer at a construction site will use more of spatial ability and numerical ability, but a writer will use different abilities such as verbal comprehension and word fluency. Also, Thurston views each of these mental abilities are independent of each other. Each of them can be assessed separately and there cannot be a single score of intelligence. He suggests that cognitive ability profile of an individual rather than a single IQ score. Today, Thurston's theory is not used as often in its original form, but it has served as a basis for many subsequent theories of intelligence, including hierarchical theories and other modern theories. Let us now move on to the next theory of intelligence, which is Thorndike's multi-factor theory. Edward Lee Thorndike proposed his theory of intelligence in the year 1920. His theory was known as multi-factor theory of intelligence. This was a time when psychology was dominated by the concept of intelligence as a universal factor. Thorndike also opposed Spearman's theory, stating that there is no single factor such as mental energy which underlies general intelligence. According to multi-factor theory of intelligence, Thorndike proposed that individual's intelligence is a combination of numerous separate elements or factors, each one being as a minute element of one's ability. Our mind is a host of highly particularized and independent faculties. In simpler words, it can be said that there are small compartments in our mind which are allotted to different functions. According to Thorndike, intelligence is a sum total of various such smaller independent faculties, and each faculty is related to some kind of cognitive functions. Intelligence, as we measure and describe, is a synthesis of all these smaller abilities. Firstly, Thorndike distinguished the 4 attributes of intelligence. The first one is level. It refers to the level of difficulty of a task that can be solved. Your level is high if you are able to solve more difficult tasks. Then comes range. This refers to the number of tasks at any given degree of difficulty. The greater number of tasks you can solve makes your range higher. Then comes area, which means the total number of situations at each level to which the individual is able to respond. It is obvious that more situations make the area wider. Then finally, it is speed, which is the rapidity with which we can respond to all the items. Further, Thorndike proposed that intelligence is a cluster of multiple ability factors. He classified intelligence into three categories, which are: first, the mechanical ability. It is ability to visualize relationships among objects, tools and equipments and to be able to manipulate them. Most of these abilities can be acquired through learning. For example, sometimes at home we are trying to fix a bulb, fix a tap. All this is related to your mechanical ability. You might have learnt it, or with your experiences you might have understood how all these mechanics of a bulb or a tap works. This is nothing but your mechanical ability. Then we have abstract intelligence. The ability includes dealing with symbols, words, concepts, language, thinking, etc. Abstract intelligence is a difficult concept. Generally, children do not have understanding of abstract things, something they cannot understand or imagine things as well as an adult. So this is all about how you can imagine things, how you can write things which are not present in front of you, but still you can understand things. That is related to abstract intelligence. Then we have social intelligence. This ability reflects social skills which are essential for developing healthy relationships. No matter how much ever intelligence you have, general intelligence, mechanical ability or abstract intelligence, unless and until you have good social intelligence, you cannot survive or you cannot deal with people in a better way. So social intelligence plays a very, very important role because we all live in society and we people influence each another. Thorndike believes that all these abilities are innate and totally independent of each other. According to his theory, evaluation of individual's capacity in one area does not point to his or her capacity in other areas, and individuals differ on all these types of intelligence. This indicates that if someone has good social intelligence, they need not have good mechanical ability or vice versa. After understanding all these intelligence theories, it can be stated that they are distinct from each other. Nevertheless, the aspect of these intelligence theories are relevant in our daily activities if you observe them closely. Here is a case study about buddhi, the Indian concept of intelligence. Now, whatever theories which we have seen, or in fact whatever definitions of intelligence and etc., we have seen a lot of influence of Western concept. So, I have given you a small interesting topic about what is the Indian concept of intelligence. Intelligence is usually thought and connected with only academic achievements. The Indian concept of intelligence has shown a great concern for human potential and explored its nature in the context of self, society, universe and beyond. The Indian view is holistic and emphasis on mental abilities both in cognitive and non-cognitive domains and their integration. The word commonly used to identify this concept of intelligence in all its breadth and scope is buddhi. Buddhi can be defined as mental vigor or power of forming and retaining conceptions and general notions, reason, intellect, judgment, perception, knowledge of one's self-conscience, will and desire, presence of mind, ready wit and skill. The Indian view emphasizes on 4 competencies characterizing an intelligent person. First is cognitive, which includes sensitivity to context, comprehension, discrimination, problem solving and effective communication. Second one is social, following social norms, service to elders, obedience, helping the needy, showing concern for the environment are included here. Then comes entrepreneur, hard work, commitment, vigilance and goal directed behavior is related to this aspect. Then comes the emotional aspect, control of emotions, honesty, politeness, realisticness, self-appraisal and good conduct. All these are emotional aspect. The Indian concept is not thus restricted to cognitive domains only. It emphasizes connectivity with social aspects and the work environment. The test today, whether in schools or in screening, only focuses on cognitive aspects. Testing a person's buddhi would give a more holistic picture of person's abilities. So, this is how Indian intelligence, or the context of Indian intelligence, is different from the Western context. Now, let us quickly summarize what we have learnt in today's lesson. We have learned that intelligence is a capacity to acquire and apply knowledge. It is a complex thing to define. Many theories gave their ideas about intelligence. Each of these approaches have a different perspective and assumptions. First, we spoke about Spearman's two-factor theory of intelligence, which had G factor and S factor. According to this theory, an individual's intelligence score reflects the amount of G and the magnitude of various S factors possessed by the individual. Apart from this, Spearman also made a major contribution to the field of psychology by introducing the technique of factor analysis. Then we spoke about Thurston's theory of primary mental abilities, which objected to Spearman's emphasis on general intelligence. Thurston identified 7 factors which he called as primary mental abilities, which are verbal comprehension, word fluency, numerical ability, perceptual speed, inductive reasoning, spatial ability and memory. According to this theory, when an individual does a task, he or she invests all the primary mental abilities. Next, we spoke about Thorndike multi-factor theory, which proposed that intelligence is a cluster of multiple ability factors and classified intelligence into 3 categories, which are mechanical ability, abstract intelligence and social intelligence. According to this theory, all abilities are innate and totally independent of each other.